You're listening to Real Radio, the nationally trusted name in real estate investing. We dig deep to discover investors' why in real estate. If you want to skip all the BS and get in investors' heads, you're in the right spot. Be one of the thousands to check out realradio.com.
I am a control person, but here's one thing. Shout out to agents that are listening, real estate agents. When you are working with a seller that has a house built before 1978, or you're working with a buyer and they're looking at a house that's built before 1978, look for lead-based paint. See if there's any lead-based paint information. If they don't know, or they're like, no, still go to the Omaha City Lead Registry and put in the address and see if there's anything there. If it looks like it's incomplete information, call their number and say, hey, this is what's going on. This is what I saw. What do you got? And they will contact EPA and get all the letters that you need.
This episode is brought to you by JM Real Estate Capital.
Hi, it's Rob, JM Real Estate Capital. We're the money guys that you need to know for all your real estate investments. Talk to us. We can do what your local bank can't or won't do. We don't have millions. We have trillions with a T to lend. 844 we close, or go online jmrecapital.com. That's jmrecapital.com. JM Real Estate Capital, smart solutions for the real estate investor.
Welcome to Real Radio, episode 197 with Loretta McNally.
Oh, thank you.
Very fitting that we have a nice Irish name on the podcast, since this is going to be released right around St. Patty's Day.
A week after.
Yeah, right around there. So and you're wearing green today, so no pinches, Ted.
That is my favorite holiday, just so you know.
Ooh.
This is why you see this trashy beard that he has going here. That's going to be painted orange here soon for
and
summer.
my hair.
Orange?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. I need to be able to see this.
I have pictures from all the previous years I can share with you. Yeah.
Nobody's informed Ted that he's middle-aged now. He's still acting like he's 21 years old.
Hey,
on
my
St.
mom
Patty's Day.
still goes out with me on St. Patty's. We meet up at 8 in the morning, drop the kids off at school, and then we get started.
You're kind of making my case.
You know
for
what?
me here.
My husband is 50% Irish.
Okay.
And my daughter recognizes that part very well. And the two of them will go out, depending on their schedules.
Yeah.
But they do go out, and I'm like, no, I'm good.
I'm good.
Have fun.
What's the other 50%?
Bohemian.
Really?
Yep.
Huh.
Yep.
Bohemian. Little Bohemia, just like your Airbnb.
I'm 37% Irish, and then there's quite a bit of Czech in there, and German.
I'm more Irish than I realized, but I don't know the percentage. I haven't done that. So.
Well, this is great. You're rocking the red hued hairstyle. You got the green sweater on. I don't have any green on, so I can get pinched easy, Ted.
Not me.
Let's talk about. We're gonna harken back to 1990, the fun time. Also, it feels to you. Tell me if I'm wrong here. This feels like 1990 was still 15 years ago to me.
No,
because it's 35 years ago now. That is how old we are, Ted.
Ooh.
We are. No, I see what you're doing there. So what happened in 1990 for you?
Well, backstory. In 1990, I had my daughter was born in 87. We had our 6-month-old son, and my brother-in-law, Tom McNally, who was very active in MOPOA and an attorney and did a lot of evictions for landlords, came to us and said, I have a house for you to buy if you want to, and I'll teach you what this real estate thing is all about, how to be a landlord. He didn't have the money to buy it, and we were like, okay, because he said he'd help us, right? So we bought, our first house was a small 2-bedroom, very small 2-bedroom house in South Omaha near 24th and E.
Okay.
Probably on 25th Street. And then from there, we had a realtor, and we just bought one house whenever we could have the money for the down payment. I believe the realtor we were working with was working with local banks. There were a lot more local banks, and they would have to foreclose on a house and take it over. And of course, they want those off their books right away. So we were buying one house at a time when we could. We didn't need a lot down. The bank carried us, and sometimes they would kind of joke about, here's Loretta and Tim buying one house when Tom was buying groups sometimes, you know.
How did Tom help you with that first one? Did he help you with the rents and leases? And I mean, how much hand holding did it take? Because I mean, just to drop that on you and say, hey, you're going to be a landlord, that's a lot.
That's a good point. He did. He gave us his lease. He taught us how to take applications, how to show the house, how to advertise the house. It was very simple. And I did it. I took it on. My husband has a full-time real job, which he still has. And
a real job. That's what my wife would say to me.
Yeah.
I had a real job. I have the real job here.
Yeah, because he's getting pension too. So, and insurance.
Yep.
So yeah, I call it a real job. And I would handle all of that. And then we just grew. By 2000, we had 10 houses. We sold the one in South Omaha because that was the only one we had. All the rest of them were in North Omaha. And by the way, we did cash rent. I say cash rent or Section 8. I mean, you could give me a money order, right? Mm-hmm. And it worked out very well. I was very responsive to the tenants. I was always still am the main point of contact. And then by the end of 2000, I came into some money from my mother, and we bought 2 groups of 10 houses, again, all in North Omaha. So by the end of 2000, we actually had 31 rentals, and some of them, they were all supposed to be occupied. So buyer beware. I'm thinking the second group, some of those tenants disappeared right away. So
new sheriff in town, they got to bail.
Yeah. So, but that's okay. We did have one of those houses sit for a while. It became our storage house because it needed a lot of work, but it worked out fine. And again, after that, those purchases, about 24 of the houses were almost always Section 8 tenants. They just stayed with us because we worked with them and we didn't fiddle around. It was Section 8. Here's what your portion is. Here's what OHA is paying. Call us if you have a problem. They do the inspections. We do the repairs. It was not a big deal. It worked out well for us.
Can you deep dive a little bit in what it takes to run a Section 8 house, like what the expectations are and, what the process is to continue to have that Section 8 tenant in your home?
Sure. Okay, great. So once we've selected them for the house, then we have to fill out paperwork and turn it into the Omaha Housing Authority. And they have to approve the house and the rent. And if we were asking for too much rent, we'd back it down. And we always wanted our houses to meet or exceed housing quality standards anyway. So we went in when a house was vacant and took care of what we thought we needed to take care of just based on visual inspection, your walkthrough. And then we were fined with the OHA inspectors that came out and said, hey, you need to do this and this. And they came back because we did it. And we did it. Mm-hmm. That wasn't a problem for us. Whenever we wanted to do a rent increase after a year, I would actually deliver that paperwork to the Omaha Housing Authority office and have it signed in and, that they received it. So it was fine. The relationship, it really was a business relationship. The business relationship was fine. I never had a problem with it. And we treated every tenant the same. You don't pay your rent, you get a 3-day notice. Now it's a 7-day notice. And so it worked out, whether, again, cash rent or Section 8, we treated everybody the same. Section 8 was very cooperative with getting repairs done. If I didn't understand why this fix needed to be done, they explained it to me and went, oh, okay. So, yeah.
What about like renewing a Section 8 tenant? Sorry, I don't hear much about this. And, and there's a lot of people that are really scared of this. They think that they're going to have to go through all these inspections and they're not going to make as much rent, or, the property is going to get extra damage. And I just don't know because there's not that many people that talk about it publicly.
So a good example is I have a woman that's been renting from us from probably 2000. She's on Section 8 and she's been in the same house and she takes very good care of it. And every year she's there for the inspection and we do any fixes. She and I do a walkthrough ahead of time, see if we can see something, or she tells me about something, we get it done. Because do you want to have them just in once and you're done instead of a repeat visit or whatever? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So when 1 year's up, before the year's up at about 8 months, 9 months, then I submit a request for a renewal and a rent increase. They've already either scheduled or already had the home inspection because they have to have that home inspection for the next year before that next year starts.
So this is an annual thing.
Yes.
Every time the lease is going to come up for renewal, you have to get it re-inspected. Is that how it goes?
Absolutely.
All right. I have a rental property. I'm considering Section 8. I like that the rent is quote unquote guaranteed because you're receiving it from the government, not from the tenant directly. Like, what are they looking for? So I'm like, okay, I think I'm going to do this. I could go Section 8. I think it's going to cash flow better if I do that. The rent's guaranteed. There's a lot of good, but I'm scared because, they're going to be coming through and they're going to pick apart everything. Maybe I don't have enough money for all the repairs. Like, what could you talk about there that might assuage some of those fears?
So first, let me clarify it's guaranteed rent. The portion from OHA is guaranteed. The portion that the tenant pays is supposed to be paid by the tenant. And I have never said you don't have to pay me. And you get a 3-day notice 7-day notice.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten used to that yet. A 7-day notice for non-payment of rent. Okay. So regarding the inspections, I always, does the refrigerator have all the shelves? Is it clean? Because let's say for a repeat inspection, I do a walkthrough with the tenant. I ask them or her or they, what do you know that I need to fix? And they'll let me know. Hopefully not a lot because they're supposed to call me if the toilet's not flushing right or there's water where it's not supposed to be, right? Then we'll check, is there peeling paint on the outside of the house? Is there a cracked pane of glass?
Is it heating and cooling like it should? Is it like it's safety issues, a lot of it, right?
Not necessarily all safety, but the furnace should be working because they're going to call me if they're cold or they're going to call me if the AC is not working. So it should always be functioning properly because I get right on it. And I have a list of contractors that I call and they do a good job for me or they're not on the list anymore. So again, flushing the toilet. Is there water seeping out from under the toilet? Is there water under the sink?
Smoke detectors functioning,
yes, and we
carbon
need to be
monoxide.
changing those more frequently than we do.
Now, real quick, if I could, I have long-time rental house that I have under contract to sell right now. And I was going through earlier this week and just looking for stuff because it was an FHA sale. So the appraiser, you can't have a trip hazard, you can't have peeling paint, you got to have smoke detector, CO, all that stuff. So I had kind of a mini punch list of things that I had to get done before the sale can close because the FHA appraiser has to come back out and bless it and all that. So I noticed when I was there, I'm like, there's not enough smoke detectors. So I went and bought like $220 worth of smoke and CO detectors. And I did want to call this out because I don't know when this changed, but it had to have been within the last couple of years. Like, I don't know about you, Loretta, or you, Ted, but whenever I have a rental that I've owned for a while or like several rentals, if you go out and do a site visit or an inspection, they take the batteries out of the smoke detectors all the time. Right? You guys notice that? Like always, it's either chirping or there's nothing in it or they take the whole thing down and you're like, oh, don't do that. That is like, you can't do this. But they have those 10-year sealed.
They never last.
I know you had a couple that
so
failed.
Frustrating. But
they have those 10-year batteries that are sealed, so you can't remove them now. So and so that's I think it's either a regulation or it's coming out as a regulation. I should have looked into this.
So I've been buying the kiddie ones, KIDDE, and they're all Bluetooth connected too. So if one goes off, they all go off, and they're a 10-year battery. I have thrown away, 6 of those in the last year. That weren't even like over a year old. Yeah, and there's nothing more frustrating than that.
Yeah, and they're gotten so much more expensive than they ever used to be.
They're over $100 a piece.
Oh, why are you buying the Bluetooth ones?
Well, because they're in Airbnbs, and I want the whole thing to go off simultaneously.
Okay,
so
I'm like, that Bluetooth. Wow.
I just buy the cheapest one, honestly. But so I've had like buildings that I've acquired. I've had some random Section 8 existing tenants that never really stayed on. Like their lease expired and they bailed for whatever reason. I was like, I don't really want to do Section 8. It gets a stigma a little bit. Like, right? Would you agree with that?
It does, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
it sounds like, now I do want to call out something here and check your facts, because it sounds like this has all gone like swimmingly and like just according to plan, but surely there's been some drama in there somewhere, because, as humans, we have a tendency to remember the good and forget the bad over time. There's got to be some drama that's surfaced in there. Give us something,
or challenges.
And the point is, when you apply for my house, I treat everyone the same. So if you're a Section 8 applicant, again, it's all the same.
Yep.
And I have one tenant who, she started to make more income, and then she wasn't allowed to be in the Section 8 program any longer. And she came to me and she said, I don't have to move, do I? I said, no. and she's still in the house.
Oh, nice.
So I have 2. So your question again, was there anything? I have had, my Section 8 tenants have been really, really good. I can't think of right now, because I only have one Section 8 person now, and she's been with me since 2000, that I've had any major problems with over time. And some weren't as clean as they needed to be. And I would remind them, hey, I've got things I need to do, but you've got things you need to do. I'm not cleaning your house. And when this inspector got there, I got the report. I got what I'm supposed to do. The tenant, house was clean. So there may be a cleanliness issue, but not, I had one house that the tenant came with the house when I bought it, not Section 8. And we had no idea how many cockroaches were in that house.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh. I had to have it sprayed, like 3 times before we could go in and clean it. Again, not a Section 8 tenant.
I had 2 Airbnb complaints for roaches, and I know I don't have roaches, and I spray regularly just to keep up on it, And so this last time, lady took a picture of it, and she's like, "I want a free room." And I'm like, "This is a little weird." And it's like this little bug, and that was this big, and it was just a real close up. And then I went and walked the whole property, and we sprayed everything. And the guy's like, we went under all the cabinets, and looked. He's like, I can't even find a spider in this place. I don't know what you're talking.
She probably brought it with her.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said.
Yeah.
Oh.
Hey, quick funny. I have, this is several years ago. I bought a 5-plex in Council Bluffs, Iowa, and they were rough. This was like nothing had been touched on the inside or outside in a long time, but they were super cool setup, like townhome style. So they had multiple levels to them. It was almost like a row house, right? So you enter through the garage goes up a flight of steps. There's a living room, bathroom, and then upstairs there's 2 bedrooms, right? So it's 3 levels. And anyway, so I own this for a bit. I remodel a couple of the units, and then I have a management company that's handling the day-to-day, and they're like, "Hey, FYI, we have bed bugs in one of the units, and we think it's now into another unit as well." Now, I had planned to do a complete exterior remodel. So this was like the dark stain. It almost looked like a cabin. It was super ugly. You know what I mean? Like in the 70s, like it was all like the dark wood and all that. It just looked super ugly. Roof needed redone. I was just kind of kicking the can a little bit. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to get a couple units done. Then I'm going to do the roof and then siding and blah, blah, blah. So they're like, okay, bugs. And I'm like, oh crap. I know bed bugs are bad. And they're really hard to get rid of, So we had it treated. We had a pest control company go out there like 5 times and they're still complaining. And I'm like, I feel terrible. But at the same time, I'm like, what is the deal? Like, what are you guys actually doing when you go out there? Long story longer, it ended up being that they were actually bat bugs, not bed bugs.
I don't even know what bat bugs are.
I had no idea. They
never heard that.
They look very, very similar. They're obviously really small, so it's hard to distinguish their characteristics. But when you look at them really close, you can see a little bit different. You cannot treat them the same way to get rid of them. That doesn't work. And they were coming from the attic, right? So there were bats that were in the not the attic, but the attic, I guess, throughout all 5 units. By the way, have you guys ever done a bat extermination? Oh man, that is not cheap because they're a protected species and you're not supposed to kill them. You're supposed to basically wait until they're done nesting. You can't evict them during nesting season. There's a whole thing about this. And so I had like critter control or somebody out there and it was like thousands of dollars. And they basically go up thousands. And they go up and they basically check out the attic or wherever they're getting in. And they put a one-way exit so that you can go out of it, but you can't come back in. But they can't do it during their certain nesting periods or whatever. So if it happens during like, I don't know, it's like 4 or 6 months, you're just got to live with it. So this made it super difficult to eradicate the bat bug problem. And it's like, okay, calm down, people. These aren't actually bed bugs. Don't worry, they're bat bugs. Like, that's almost worse because now you have bugs, but now you also have bats to worry about.
The bats bring a bug.
Yeah. They're like, they live on them like ticks, evidently, like lice.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that's, it's not a gold nugget, but it's a bonus entomology nugget.
How catastrophic is that bug on your property?
Well, they don't actually do the same thing because they prefer bats. They're basically tied to that species. So they're not going to typically bite humans, I don't think. But, they still get in the same places and they're crawling down the walls and getting behind the floorboards and all that. So it's like people freak out when they think they have bed bugs. I mean, I would like go, there's that meme where somebody's just torching the lawn when it's like, a snake or something. That'd be me if no, thank you. I don't want any of that business going on in my
Owen sold the property right after that.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm out. Like, as is.
Well, I have a bat story and I have a bed bug story if you want to hear it.
Yeah, what do you got? What do you got?
Okay, so first, bed bugs. So we had a woman that left, not Section 8, again, don't want to go there. And we're cleaning up the house and Tim brought home bed bugs because he was doing my husband, that's my husband, by the way. And we had no clue. So we were treating the house, of course, the rental property. She had moved out. It was vacant, taking care of things. And then we had bed bugs in our house. So they were just in the master bedroom and it took 2 sprays. Then they had to come in and do a heat treatment because the
the cringe.
PTSD. See, I knew it wasn't all rosy. Now they're all coming back.
Yes, yeah. It's like, okay.
Yeah, your repressed memories are now on full display here, by the way.
So, but the nice thing about it is we wound up with an updated master bedroom.
There you go. Yeah. That is a good pay. Your husband won't get off his ass and do remodeling. You just bring some bed bugs home. Problem solved.
But the bugs we had our bed was had slats and the bed bugs were getting in between the slats. And so that the spray wasn't getting
super gross.
Anyway, so that's that. Yeah, that's that story. Bats. Okay. So we've had bats at our house, but I'll talk about a rental that we had. We had several bats and, I was told maybe 2 colonies of bats, total all brick, old turn of the century house. And, there were the tiny bats. They would come in somehow into the basement and then they'd come through.
Like one of the chase.
They somehow they got in this siding. And so it took several, but we had I call him the bat guy, the bat guy. He put in the one-way doors, just like you were talking about. Yep. But there were all these dead bats in the basement. Oh, a funny part of this. I was downstairs sweeping up dead bats because they're dead. I don't care. But then there was one hooked to the chimney and I'm like, oh, it's still there. I thought I'd knock it off and it moved.
Oh, yeah.
True story. I was like, oh, it's still alive. Maybe I should go back upstairs for a while. Okay. So that's my bat story. And then we've had bats at our house. They say that Dundee is the best place to have bats. And our house is brick and stucco. Yeah. And they were getting into the attic. And we would just open the front door and they'd eventually open the front door, the back door, close bedroom doors, and they'd eventually go out. And then I had the same bat guy come to our house and say, we've had 3 too close together. And so he found where they were getting into our house.
My wife would freak
out. Bats are they kind of skeeve you out. They just look not natural. You know what I mean? Even though they're mostly docile and they don't want to mess with you unless they've got something going on with rabies. But my wife has it's distant cousin or something. He bought this house in a small town, Oakland, Iowa, where my wife's from. It had been abandoned for, I don't know, 10 years, something like that. Big old, farmhouse type situation. And there were a colony of bats. I don't know. Is it a gaggle? I don't know what you call a group of bats. Colony? A murder of bats? No, it's crows.
Gaggle sounds fun.
Okay. So anyway, this large gathering of bats was in this attic. And so this guy buys it, right? And his whole plan was just, get it all cleaned out, remodel it. I think he might have been planning on living there. But turns out bat guano is extremely toxic. Yeah. Like it is really, really, really bad for you. There's all kinds of bad diseases that can come out as a result of it. So even breathing in when you're in a bat guano filled attic. So he got super, super sick, really, really, really bad. And something bad ended up happening to him. I don't remember, but yeah. So anyway, word to the wise out there, be aware of bats.
I wish I could remember. I was just talking to one of the agents in the office here last week, and they got bitten by a bat while they're sleeping. And they had to rush to the hospital and get all the shots in it. And they say it was thousands and thousands of dollars to get all the shots.
Did they become a vampire?
No.
Geez, I at least want some superpowers out of the whole deal.
That's a good point.
Like Spider-Man stuff?
Yeah. Bats and rabies?
Bats and rabies.
Yes. Okay. That's what I thought.
Yeah, that's what you had to get shots for.
Yeah.
Oh, those are not fun either, from what I understand. You got to get it right in your stomach and the treatment is almost worse than the cure. Super painful.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah, so that's we've covered a lot on pest control today. So Loretta, what I didn't get to ask you when you mentioned you bought that first South Omaha rental. What did you buy it for? I want to I want to go on a trip back to the past here to see what real estate rentals cost back.
Can we make guesses? Because I don't know the amount.
Yeah, I have one.
Okay, what's your guess?
My guess is $45,000.
Okay, so I bought my first flip house just a few blocks from there on 19th and L Street, and it was condemned for 7 years. And I bought that for $12,000. So I'm gonna guess that your number was this house livable?
You can't do that. Well, I didn't get to ask any questions.
15,000.
Oh yeah, that's what we paid for it.
What? Are you serious?
Oh, whatever. You two have collaborated.
No.
I didn't know this.
I would have to double check with my husband, but I'm pretty sure it was only 15. But it was a loan. We had a loan.
Think about the year and the time.
Okay, wait.
1990.
I'm gonna guess. Let's now guess what you rented it for. Okay.
Oh,
hang on.
I got a number.
I think I have it. I'm going to say $450.
I was going to say $250.
It was probably I was thinking in the $450 range, but I'm guessing because it was really tiny and we couldn't expand. It was
set up weird or something.
It was just tiny in a tiny lot. And we had good tenants, but when the tenant moved out, we said, well, let's sell this one because it's the only South Omaha house that we own. So the two groups of 10 that we bought, basically we bought somewhere, the rest of the houses were more than 15, but sometimes under 20. We bought one for 29.
Jeez.
And then I fixed it up and sold it last year for a whole bunch.
Well, I just remember 10 years ago, you could still get South Omaha houses for, $100,000 or less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could be.
So, 1990.
Yeah. And so in 2000, our two groups of 10, the first group was, I believe, 225. And the second group was like 228.
For 10 houses.
This is interesting. No, I'm glad you brought this part up of your story too, because I don't think we've had really anybody or many people that have bought a package like that before of single family homes. How did that come about? Like, what did you go out looking for this, or was it somebody just ran it by you and you're like, yeah, we could probably take a swing at this?
Our realtor saw them and said, hey, are you interested? And again, the first group, my mom had given me some money from it was from my grandma. She passed away, and my mother was absolutely wonderful. She said, I'm going to give this money to you now while you need it rather than you waiting till I die.
Yeah.
And so I said, Tim, let's buy more houses. So that's what we did. And we told our realtor we were looking, and he found this, and it was the sellers in both cases. They were landlords with lots and lots and lots of houses. And they decided, I'm going to sell 10 or whatever. And that's how we connected to see them.
Loretta, when you were getting these properties, I know you had a short stint in politics.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Was that during that time?
No.
It was before or after?
Well, I graduated from UNO and I was looking for a job.
Yeah.
And I worked on campaigns. I met my husband in politics.
What was he doing in that? Was he also working?
Do you want me to be real honest?
Yeah.
Okay. I was in Young Democrats.
Yeah.
We met in Young Democrats. I fell in love. He fell in love. We got married.
So you guys
fell in love.
So it was like a group in college?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. And then you started working for a mayor, right?
Yes, I did. I had the opportunity to work for Mayor Mike Boyle.
Yeah.
I had volunteered on his campaign because I still had my little job at UNO. I had my degree, but hadn't found anything yet. I had just gotten my degree. So I worked on his campaign. I'd worked on several before that and several after. And, he won. And I sent him a letter and asked him for a job. Nice letter. And he hired me.
Now, what was your role with him?
So I don't know if most people know this, but the city charter says that there will be a complaint office within the mayor's office. Right now they call it the mayor's hotline. When Mike Boyle became mayor, there was one staff person in the office who was there under Alves. Obviously they continue the office because you're required to. He was actually, he made it bigger. It became the mayor's action office. And I was the head of the action office.
Oh, wow.
And so I had one staff person. And then by the time I left, we had 3 staff. And I had become an actual aide to the mayor rather than the action office manager. And I absolutely loved it. I went to neighborhood meetings with the mayor, took notes. lots of constituent letters. The first spring I was there, we had a big problem with chuck holes, as we always do.
Nothing changes.
But I went out on a street crew to see what they do, how they're doing it, and hey, let's get it done and thank you. You know, I would have conversations with the street maintenance engineer, and, you know, it was sometimes difficult because men weren't prepared to have a conversation with a woman about, you know, potholes or whatever, or another constituent issue. But I just made it clear that I was here for the mayor, and, you know, the next person I call would be the boss. So it's up to you. So it was a great opportunity for me. And then Mike was recalled, and I decided to resign at that point. And then I went home and had some kids, and then bought a bunch of rentals.
How did that stint in politics like affect your life going forward? I know that you do a lot of different committees and whatnot now. I didn't know if that kind of played a role into it.
It does not, because I was politically active prior to that.
Yeah.
And then during that, being home with kids, I've just not been involved, but I continue to support some candidates, work for them on a volunteer basis, but I don't ever set my business aside and hurt the business because I want to volunteer over here. Well, I look at it for me. I'm a licensed realtor since 2008. I've had rental properties since 1990. And then when you think about it, if I decide to fix up one of my houses and sell it, okay, there's another role. Plus being wife. I have no grandbabies. That's okay.
Is it?
Actually, it's fine. My kids I don't ask them for grandkids. I just will never do that. My mom didn't do it to me.
Oh man, my mom started on me like when I was 18. She's like, when are my grandbabies going to come? I mean, no joke. That's when it first started.
I think the passive aggressive move here is you wait until this podcast episode drops, and then you fast forward it to the start where you are just talking about grandbabies, and then you send them the link to the podcast and be like, hey, check it out. I'm on a podcast for the first time. And then it happens to start right when you start talking about grandbabies. You'll get the hint.
Wonderful.
This is going to 2 years. You're going to have a grandbaby at least one.
Just clip this short right here.
We did scare Tim's mom because, you know, I was 22 when we got married, and my husband would have been 25. So that was young. But I didn't have my daughter till I was almost 30. And
they're pacing around. Like, when is this going to happen? Yeah. Right.
But not my mom. She already had some grandbabies. I have a brother, and she already had grandbabies. And I'm a lot like my mom. There's just my grandma, my mom, and I. Now my daughter, you just line us up.
I did have a question here. You mentioned that you're a licensed realtor. I'm curious if it annoys you when people say realtor. Is that a thing? Because I've noticed when people enunciate words very clearly, typically they're like correcting people without correcting them ahead of time.
When I hear realtor, I kind of cringe, but I
I knew it.
I hope I don't have that look on my face.
You're a grammar police just like I am. Yeah, Ted gets so annoyed with me.
And I won't. I mean, there's even realtors that say realtor. And I never correct anybody. I really don't, because I'm like, to each their own.
But
honestly.
Inside you are. I got it.
Oh, yeah, well, that's a good way to look at it. Yes. I cringe inside like, oh.
Oh, that is so funny. Now, I do also want to call out the fact that you worked for the complaint line for the mayor, which I would argue is a really good boot camp to start managing your own properties. Because it's not like you get a lot of happy calls typically. It's, you know, generally people are annoyed. They have a maintenance issue. They're going to, you know, they're dealing with problems. Like, do you think there's something wrong with you that you loved working at the crisis line for the mayor?
I like helping people.
Okay.
And so another backstory that's really old. I was born in Omaha, grew up in Dakota City, Nebraska. We owned a bar. Okay.
Yeah.
From the age of 10, I worked in the bar because there's a kitchen, and I was putting food on the plates. And then as soon as I could get the basket out of the chicken fryer, I was a cook. And I was an A student, active in lots of things, never a cheerleader or basketball player or anything like that. But, you know, and so I learned in that bar how you treat people. It doesn't matter where they come from. Do they just get off at 7:00 at Iowa Beef at 7:00 in the morning, and now it's their night and they're playing pool? And I learned that's just what my mom taught us. And so I bring that forward with everything that I do.
I think that, as a child of two entrepreneurial parents, I didn't really, I guess, have an appreciation for the things that were instilled in me just by me observing, where it sounds like your parents, owned a bar, which is a small business, and your customers are your patrons, and you got accustomed to interacting with people. You learned probably customer service skills. And, socially, you were able to, function in there. You learned how the mechanics of that small business worked by cooking and I don't know if you bartended or any of that, but cooking and cleaning and kind of like, keeping the lights on with running the day to day, which I just wanted to highlight that because I think you learned some things that you don't realize you learned until you are putting them into practice at a later point. And so I think, good on you and your folks for getting you involved early. It was probably annoying at the time, but, no, you liked it?
I did.
Yeah.
And I got paid. She even asked her accountant, should I be, taking money on? I'm like, I'm
well,
getting $1 an hour.
There are child labor laws, but we won't worry about that.
Don't tell anybody, right?
That's funny.
Loretta, as you're starting to wind down the investment side of your portfolio, and you've been winding up being a real estate agent, I know that you put a lot of focus also on investment real estate, specifically short sales. You seem to get a lot of bank-owned property deals. There was a long time I'd be looking online and your name was tagged on almost every investment, what I look at as an investment deal, something that's bank-owned, short sale, foreclosure. Like, how did you start developing those relationships over the years?
Okay, so I actually did not buy any. Well, they probably were I'm guessing that they were bank foreclosures because it was one house and we basically took over the mortgage. Mm-hmm. That was only between 90 and 2000. Mm-hmm. I do, however, I learned when I got my license in 2008, then we had the crash and I learned really fast how to do short sales. Mm-hmm. And I was like one of two in our realtor office. And so I took over, I did a lot of short sales for people, but that's how I made money. That doesn't fully answer your question because I just bought them in the 90s and I think they were bank owned.
But you're getting a lot of those. You're talking
about listings, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Because there's only like 3 agents that were really doing short sales over the last decade or two in town. Mm-hmm. And it was really, you, Kim Stevens, and Jerry Schlickburn are pretty much all three women, really have mastered that category. So how do you start getting yourself so well known in that getting those leads?
Mm-hmm. It was just being known in the office, and an agent would come to me and say, "Hey, can you help me with this?"
Got it.
They'd either say, "Can you just do this and give me a referral fee because I don't really want to learn all that." Or mess it up, right?
Yep.
And so really it was just like that. I wasn't like Kim. Yeah.
I just wanted to call out too the fact that this is interesting. You worked on a team, right? You were a licensed realtor on a team, and you got known as the specialist in something that was. Well, let's face it, it's not common knowledge on how short sales operate. They can be problematic when you're dealing with a bank to try and get an offer accepted. They take forever to close. And if I'm an agent, I'm like, I don't want to know how to do this. Like, can you just handle this? That's interesting because you became known as kind of like a niche within a team. And then you got the opportunity to work on deals that you might not have if everyone else knew how to do what you knew how to do.
Yeah. And it worked out fine. We had a small team and I did business. That sounds very basic, but it's just doing business and you're helping those clients, those sellers that are in trouble and they need help to get out. Mm-hmm. How do they move forward with their life in a mess right now?
Mm-hmm. So the 2 packages of 10 houses that you bought, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it sounds like you bought the first 11 one at a time. Over time. Did I get that right?
Correct.
Okay. And then the 2 packages of 10 came along, put you at 31 doors. Now, I believe you said you're back down to 11. Is that right? Current
Correct.
Day. Did you sell the 2 10-house packages as packages? Or did you piece those off and sell them? Like, how did you end up at exactly the same number as when you started is I guess the question.
I never thought about that. We have 11 and now we're back at 11.
Yeah.
So actually a little bit of a change. So, I just decided to sell some houses as they became available because I wanted to quiet down that side of what I do and be licensed realtor. Mm-hmm. Okay. Because I love working with people. I like working with our tenants, even if they're having troubled times and they need to come up with, can I pay you my rent over, half here and half 2 weeks later, or whatever. I just really like working with people. But I was ready to downsize the houses, and Tim was fine with that, so I could focus more on real estate. And basically, when a house became vacant is when I sold it. There were no packages. Just I decided that that's the one I'm going to sell. Now, if I have another one come available tomorrow, I might change my mind. So I have, in addition to the North Omaha properties that I have, of that 11, I have one in Exarban, and I had an opportunity to buy that in, I believe, 2007 or 8. And it was another agent that said, I don't want to keep this. I'll sell it to you. And I said, how much? I'm like, that sounds good to me. And it's a 2-bedroom house in Exarban that I bought for $70,000, still owe on it. And, if I fixed it up, I could sell it for somewhere around probably $200,000.
Now regarding the fix up comment, I was going to ask you, so you had these 20 houses that you've divested of. When one comes vacant and you're like, hey, I think we're probably going to sell this. Do you just clean it out and clean it and then list it as is? Or do you go in and you get it to the point where it's almost a flip?
So I used to just sell them as is. Like, let's just get it off the books. Last year was my first year that I fixed up a house and sold it to an owner occupant.
Okay. Now that you've done both, what do you like better? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Is the question? Yeah,
he's asking you because he's.
I'm doing it right.
now.
I'm doing this right now. Yeah.
Okay. Yes,
I have several that are unwinding that I'm going to sell.
Like, I bought this one house for $29, and it was all paid off, and I sold it for $168. I put $65 into it.
Okay.
And it was nice, and I put in all the appliances, including a stackable washer and dryer, because it's a slab house, and to fit a washer and dryer back there by the furnace. And I did some strange things too that investors might think strange. I was like, well, the furnace is 21 years old. Okay, change out the HVAC. Okay, the water heater's 20. Oh, just change it out. I put in, during the time I owned it, I put in a new electric panel. But I had my electrician come in and take the cover off and make sure it was still in good order and not rusty and all that stuff. I had the roofer check the roof. I just did those things because a lot of times when somebody's buying a house in that price range, one, they can't afford appliances necessarily. And two, if something happens, they might not have ready cash to call the plumber. And that's my way to give back.
Do you recommend to other investors or clients you work with to do a pre-inspection before you list the properties?
I did that too.
Yeah.
Yep. I will give a seller, if he or she is flipping a house, I'll give him that option. But I did it because, one, I thought if I do it, then it's right here for any buyers to look at, for the realtor to look at, and their realtor. And then that's one less thing they have to pay for. They don't scare me, though. If you want to have your own home inspection, that's fine.
It's also nice too because it puts everything on the table. So in case, how many times you work with somebody and then it goes through the inspection, and they were completely blown away, they didn't expect that, and then everything is chaos because you got to fix that one thing before a closing date. And if you can just have it all up front on the table, either you can say this is what it is as is, priced accordingly, or you can go fix it for your listing. Which either way, it just takes so much pressure off.
Oh, the next flip I do, I'm going to have a home inspection again because did I miss something? Did my contractor not do something right? Whatever.
Plus, it gets somebody takes another opportunity off the table for somebody to back out of your purchase, right?
Oh yeah, that's true.
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate here.
Okay.
All right. So I have a house that we bought as a flip. It's under contract right now, and it went into contract. The buyer got a home inspection. They were a first-time home buyer, and the typical, it was fine until the dad came through. You know what I mean? Like they brought the father through and blah, blah, blah. And then the home inspection had some things on it. And we were pretty sure that they were going to bail on the contract. So we're like, yeah, we'll do XYZ repairs, but not this one or whatever. And sure enough, they bailed. And so we were like, should we do these repair items because they're probably going to come up again anyway on the next buyer? And then we gambled, because it was probably going to be like $5,000, right, to do some of them. Like a couple of them were more expensive. They weren't safety issues or anything, but we got it under contract again. Buyer again got a home inspection, and different things came up, and they were easy fixes. They were like, it was probably less than $1,000. And so we just did those easy fixes, and now the contract's good because we said did what they want us to do and so forth. So it's a gamble. I guess there's the peace of mind aspect of it where you can go and you can say, yes, I'm going to do these things because it's the right thing to do. And they weren't correct. And I want to make sure everything's perfect. But then the other side of the coin is you may be spending money unnecessarily on something that they would accept, without you spending it. You get it. I mean, you get it.
I get it.
But you got to disclose all those items that you found on that first one, then on your report.
Sure. Unless you say no repairs or reports to seller or no reports to seller, or there's those things too. So, and
I would have looked at that first list and gone, okay, they walked. What on this list do I really need to fix because they're going to come up on the next inspection, or I just need to do it.
Yeah.
Whether there's an inspection or not, because it might be a safety issue or something like that.
Yeah.
So you do have to be careful.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going through this like real time. So I just wanted to kind of like try and poke holes in that approach. Sure. But so you're at a stage right now where you still have 11 single family rentals. You're focusing on your agent business. You are an owner operator. So you're managing your own properties. Now, one thing I did want to ask you is, having 31 single family rentals, you've got 31 doors, but they're 31 separate structures and 31 sets of different tenants. How much time do you think you spent just on managing property yourself? And do you think it's manageable for someone to have 31 if they have a W-2? Like, maybe let's explore that topic a little.
Good question.
Well, and that's all when we had the 31, that's all I did. And mom duty, right? And volunteering at school and going to soccer games and that kind of thing. So I had those responsibilities. Did my house get cleaned? No.
The cobbler's children have no shoes.
Yeah. But it was a busy time. Tim handled the books in terms of posting the rents and everything, but I handled keeping track of who paid, did they pay on time, doing the 3-day notices, showing up in court, inspecting houses and lining. I had a list of contractors, and then when I started to downsize houses, they said, I'm going to have to go work someplace else.
You're taking my job.
Sorry. So I don't.
Do you think 20 hours? Do you think that
a week?
Yeah. If you boiled it all down on average.
If they were all, okay, I would say on average with 31 houses, I'm going to say 25 hours a week because I'm a hands-on person. And some weeks it would be more. And then some weeks it would be less because everything's rented.
Sure.
No phone calls.
Lease up time is the most time consuming in my opinion, because like somebody moves out, then you have to do a make ready. You have to manage the contractors. You have to make sure it's all done. You have to show it, maybe to a bunch of people. You have to you do background checks. You have to qualify them. Then you have to do the lease and so I just found that it was especially annoying when you have a handful of them, because I got to about 20 before I started. I had about 20 single families before I started outsourcing the property management, but it got to a point where several leases would come due at the same time, or there were move outs that were kind of clustered together. And that's when it gets stressful, is like when you have so many different high touch communication areas. But yeah, I just thought, we don't talk a lot about the time involvement of what's realistic to do when you own and manage your own properties. So I just thought that'd be, that's a good soundbite. So on average, maybe 10 hours. Is that more like it when you boil it all down?
10 hours
a week?
Now?
No, just when you had 31.
No, I said 25.
Oh, 25. Sorry. Use your hands on. Yeah.
He doesn't listen very well.
What'd you say?
And I will literally just go drive by some of the houses. Are they mowing?
Yeah.
Because if I call them and say, hey, are you mowing? Yes.
Yeah.
And they might not be. I drive by the house on 62nd Street and I'm like, okay. And I'll call my tenant and he'll say, yeah, I know, I'm mowing tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Got it.
And if they didn't, you'd send a mower out there and charge them?
Nice. Yeah. $150.
Well, actually, with that particular guy, he's the gentleman that I have at my 62nd Street house. He lived in 2 houses in North Omaha. And then he called me one day and he said, I need a place to live. Do you got anything? And I had my house on 62nd Street was vacant, and he moved in, and we walked through to see if I needed to do anything, because I had tenants in there for a year. One thing I learned, side note, it's been a while, but I had rented my house on 62nd Street to 2 sisters. One was a teacher and the other one was still in school. And I was like, oh, this is exciting. They'll be there for a long time. They like the Exarban neighborhood, the path along the creeks for bike and all that kind of stuff. Well, they left after a year because the teacher bought a house.
Oh yeah.
And I never thought about that. If I buy a house already.
You're like, I'm an agent. Let me help you.
Well, yes, I would have liked to have been the person helping them, the agent helping them. But I was like, they were ideal tenants and they were gone after a year. And I'm glad they bought a house and they actually not too far away. But I was like, oh, darn, maybe I should have rented to the kiddo that had a trust fund account because he was still in school and it was just one person,
I remember my first long-term tenant. I made a little flyer for him and everything. I'm like, hey, if you ever decide that you ever want to buy a house, if you use me, I won't charge you a lease break fee, and I'll do this, and I'll give you a discount on this. And I still didn't get used.
I was gonna say, did it work?
No.
I just like I knew what was coming.
Do you think, knowing what you know now and looking back on 35 years of owning real estate, do you think you would still self-manage if you were starting over, or do you think you would outsource the property management?
You're looking at a control freak.
Got it.
That's
I had a feeling. I just wanted to clarify. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not like a controller of my children. Like, oh no, you can't do that. You have to. Well, they're all adults now, but I didn't. But rentals, and you got hands-on are really important.
She's twitching, thinking about somebody else handling her stuff. Yeah.
This is part of the reason that I'm selling my portfolio and going to someone else, because I'm stuck like driving by the properties at least once a week and having to be like overly hands-on with them. And sometimes I feel like I'm managing the properties more than the managers I have hired.
Oh.
And
yeah.
But I keep the managers for legal standpoint, because all the lead-based paint and everything goes on. I want to make sure that it's all being properly ran on the paperwork.
All my lead-based paint for all those houses, right in a notebook. I checked it once a month to see which house was next to do the lead-based paint disclosure or whatever.
Yeah.
I am a control person, but here's one thing. Shout out to agents that are listening, real estate agents. When you are working with a seller that has a house built before 1978, or you're working with a buyer and they're looking at a house that's built before 1978, look for lead-based paint. I know you've talked about it here on the show before, but I've had my files audited by EPA. It was a long time ago. They knocked on the door and I said, hi, because our address is our home address. That's what we use for our business, which is not what you're supposed to do. All the houses are still in our name. But anyway, that's what we've done. And I was like, oh my God, what do I do? Just let him in? My files are downstairs. Okay. And he audited 10 of my files. He didn't want any of the homes that were in the Section 8 program. The tenants were in the Section 8 program, which I thought was interesting. And this was in 2008 or 2009. And they were in town and they examined several files, and management companies didn't know what they needed to do. And they got in trouble. Some of them did. Some people did. So for agents right now, shout out to real estate agents. If you're working with houses built before 1978, whether you're on the buyer or seller side, please see if there's any lead-based paint information. If they don't know, or they're like, no, still go to the Omaha City Lead Registry and put in the address and see if there's anything there. If it looks like it's incomplete information, call their number and say, hey, this is what's going on. This is what I saw. What do you got? And they will contact EPA and get all the letters that you need. It's very important that you do that. And I've been on this buyer side. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm representing a buyer. It's an older house. I go ahead and go to the lead registry and I find the documentation right there. And I let the agent know that's on the seller side and I send it to them. See, I'm so serious.
It's a serious topic.
It is because we're a Superfund site here. Mm-hmm. And then they'll say, well, the seller didn't disclose it to me. And I said, well, they might not have known because this happened in the lead abatement came in 2006 or whatever, 2012. And they didn't buy the house until 2019. And you can go back to the previous listing and it's not there. Mm-hmm. And I said, so will you redisclose this? And if they say no, I go ahead and I prepare my own lead disclosure with the correct information we're supposed to have in the attachments. And I'll explain it all to my client and I'll tell them we're going to sign off on this. And I'm sending it to the seller side and saying, please do this. so that we're all protected. Because I'm thinking, at least I'm doing what I can to protect my clients if our files are audited. Now, are they auditing files these days or coming to Omaha? They probably will someday, but we're supposed to do it. So
I mean, I gotta say, it's pretty ballsy for them to just show up at somebody's house and knock on the door and expect you to come upstairs with files. I mean, that I don't think that would happen now in 2025. Maybe
that's the address for our business, though.
But like, call and make an appointment, man. What is, you know what I mean? Somebody shows up, I'd be like, "What are you doing, dude?
Yeah.
I'm getting ready to eat or whatever."
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
that just seems super weird.
It worked out just fine.
Yeah.
And he had to deal with my dog, my yellow lab dog, wanting lots of love. And I said, "Oh, you need copies? I've got a copier downstairs. Which files do you want? I'll make copies," because he had to take them with. I was very accommodating.
You're a lot nicer person than I am.
Well,
I think.
and everything
your
came
benefit,
out.
though.
Yeah, it all came back okay. When I got the letter, it said, we can tell you're making every effort to do it right. This is the way we want you to say this line. This is the way we want you to say this line. I'm like, okay, I can do that.
Have you seen situations where you've gone through what you're talking about, the due diligence part of it on the buyer side, where it has forced the seller to do remediation work?
No.
Okay. Because I was sitting here thinking, I'd be like, man, I would be freaking out if I was the seller and like I didn't know if there was lead-based paint, but it was an older home and somebody came along and they're making, they're calling attention to the lead-based paint thing. I'd be like, oh my God, what does this mean? Am I going to have to pay $30,000 just to get lead remediated or whatever? But it is a very serious topic. To your point, Ted, it's like, there's a lot of bad things that can happen to especially kids that have developing brains and they can get brain damage and, all kinds of stuff.
Well, Loretta and I were talking about this the other day. I have a client that just reached out to me and he's got a duplex in North Omaha, right in Midtown area. And long story short, he got a phone call from the EPA that his tenant's child had lead-based paint.
Exposure.
Exposure.
Yeah.
Health Department, City Lead, or Douglas County Health Department, or EPA?
I don't know.
Probably
Douglas
County.
And so he has mandatory testing that had to happen. And they told him that anything on the inside, and this is from him, anything on the inside was a $20K. They'll cover the first $20K of remediation.
Oh, really?
Yep. That should be the health department.
Okay. But he's getting all new windows. They're painting, also replacing the decks. Mm-hmm. And in the bill on one unit was going to be like $68,000. So, 48 of that was coming out of his pocket.
Whoa.
Yeah. Wow.
So I have some history too. So my first encounter with that type of situation was I had a rental and I had approved a tenant to move in. And the next thing I know, I'm getting a call from the health department. She said, I need to meet you at the rental with the new tenants. I said, okay, but what's going on? And she said, well, her child tested high for lead. And I said, they just moved in.
Mm-hmm.
She said, it was from the other house. I said, so why do we need to meet at my house? That child is living at your house now, and now I need to test that house. And we got new windows. They did some paint. They did some other things on the interior. The health department generally is interior. I'd have to double check that, but that it was interior work and it cost like back then. So again, 15,000, they paid 10 of it and they would carry the 5 and it would fall off if I owned the house for 10 years. So I didn't have to take that out of my pocket. And I've had to do that to a total of 3 houses. Well, the second house, my tenant's child was getting lead paint from the front porch. We never painted the porch floor. We left it the color it was, of course, not knowing. And then the other house, her grandchild would come to her house and we have low windows and we think it was from the window troughs. In all 3 cases, I worked with the health department. And again, there were smaller amounts because it was quite a few years ago now. And then, I had one house that I was like waiting for the 10 years to fall off so I could go ahead and sell it. But
yeah,
because I didn't want to have to pay it. And, but I worked with a tenant. So those were 3 different stories of incidents I've had regarding working with the health department and lead paint.
The crazy part is when you do this, which I didn't know, you can't pick your contractor.
Yeah.
The city gets the 3 bids. The city picks the contractor. You have no part of that.
I'm sure there's no corruption involved there.
And I'm guessing it's the health department. Sorry.
No, I didn't know either way, so I appreciate the correction.
Sure.
Now, what's life like for you now, Loretta, where you're starting to sell off your rentals? You had a number of them, operated them. You're a self-described control freak. What do you see here over the next, say, several years for you? Are you you're still very active in the real estate agent side of the business?
Yep.
Do you get FOMO when you see a really good deal out there and you're like, man, I should really buy that? Or does that go away? I'm asking for myself because I have FOMO when it comes to good deals. Do you just pass them on? Like, what happens when you see one and you have the opportunity to buy it?
I don't.
No?
I know. I don't, because I we have 11 doors right now and I'm taking very good care of them. Well, I'm going to try the whole Airbnb thing with one of my locations. I have
the Exarban one?
No. Well, so Tim and I had the opportunity to purchase 2 properties that have been in the McNally family. One house, 620 South 31st Avenue, Tim's mom and dad bought in like 1955 or so when Tim was a baby. And then it stayed in the family. But the interesting thing with that particular 2-story, turn of the century white house, nothing fancy, is that Tim's mom loved children, and she took care of some children in the neighborhood, and she worked nights at Mutual, of course. And then she got turned into the state for having a daycare. So Tim's dad said, well, you either stop doing this or you have a real daycare. So that house became main floor, basement, Ann's daycare, and the upstairs an apartment. The nice thing about the upstairs apartment is they took a door off of 2 of the bedrooms. One became the living room, one became the kitchen. Otherwise, it didn't change after all this time. And then in the 70s or 80s, Dad retired and he bought the duplex right next door. And we were able to purchase those. My husband had older twin brothers that were developmentally delayed, born in the 40s. Once they were gone, then the trust was dissolved between Tim and Tom. Tom McNally, unfortunately, was already gone, so it went to his children. But we were able to buy it from the 2 properties from the other McNally family, which was very nice. And I thank them to this day for working with us. Tim and I had managed those additional properties for all these years for Tim's dad. So I never even count those in the 31 because they were really the McNally Trust, but we own those. So those are different from the 31 that we added on later. But going forward for me, I love selling real estate. I love working with buyers and sellers. I now have a coach. I'm working with Krista Mayshore at Mayshore Coaching, which I absolutely enjoy. I just signed up for that the end of August last year. I don't have any grandbabies to bounce on my knee. That's okay. Maybe they'll come along sooner or later. I have one son that lives in California, and I'd like to be able to go out there a couple times a year if we can afford it. And then last year we spent almost a week in Estes Park. All of us came from different places. Mom and Dad paid the bill, so that's just quieter times, more time to read a book.
You mentioned the coach. How's that helped you grow, and how's that impacting you currently?
I have a problem sometimes of, even though I'm a control freak, sometimes I wander off personally. And I'm not doing the stuff I need to be focusing on. And so part of the program is really getting you to, here's your schedule, stick to it. Mm-hmm. But more importantly is, here's all these things you can do to grow your business with your marketing, Facebook, how you address people, how you reach out to people, how you take neighborhoods and you drop letters. It shouldn't be just a letter, QR code, so they can get in touch with you easier, get into your funnel. And I'm looking forward to that. I'm enjoying that part.
Okay, so you're passing on the good deals now. How do I get on that list? Can I be your guy? You can just pass them to me. I
thought you weren't buying anymore.
I'm not letting this go, Ted. I'm going to get some leads here.
Be glad to take your name.
No, I'm kidding.
I know.
All right, Loretta. So we've heard about a lot of the good. We have a section that we ask every guest, and we call it
Failing Forward.
This Failing Forward is brought to you by Magic Door. Magic Door is the AI-powered property management platform designed to handle everything from the rent cycle to the vacancy and maintenance cycles. During the rent cycle, Magic Door collects rent, sends automatic reminders, deducts management fees, and distributes payments to owners. In the vacancy cycle, Magic Door streamlines listings, tenant applications, seamless multi-language communication, screening tenants, and converting applications into leases with one click. And for the maintenance cycle, Magic Door's AI handles everything, asking tenants key questions, assigning tasks to vendors, and scheduling repairs automatically without you getting involved. With no hidden fees, no onboarding costs, and seamless AI-powered automation, Magic Door takes care of the entire property management lifecycle so you can focus on what matters most.
Where we talk about a situation that maybe didn't go according to plan, something you learned along the way. You got anything like that?
Well, you're going to laugh. Okay.
I like laughing.
We like humor. Yeah.
When we bought the 2 group of 10 houses that I mentioned to you, and then I said we had one that it became like the storage place because it needed so much work. Mm-hmm. Well, somebody needed to go check it now and then, right? Well, who would be that? Because I'm North Omaha. I'm up there, I'm going to go drive by it. Back then, you just had a flip phone that didn't do much good for anything. But I would call my mom when I went over there and I'd go, Mom, I'm at XYZ house. If I don't make it home, let Tim know where I'm at. And she goes like, what? I said, please write this down, Mom. Because she lived with us. So I'm like,
yeah.
So I would always, with any vacant house, I always walk the perimeter. Yeah. Don't just assume they break in the front door, they'll break in the back door. You got to walk the perimeter. And so I walked the perimeter and I said, then I called my mom and I went in and I'm like, okay, my mom will not remember this address. I'm dead meat.
It's not like you can text her from a flip phone either. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can't.
Like, you gotta hit one number 3 times just to get a letter out of it.
Well, and you weren't texting back then.
Yeah, that's true.
Early 2000s, because it was one of the groups of 10. The tenants moved out right away. They must not have been real tenants. Happens. And so I went in and I'm like, what are you doing? I don't carry a gun. I don't carry
There was somebody in house.
Nobody was in there.
Oh, okay.
So I'm grateful for that. But I'm like, Loretta, you can't do that this way. Maybe you should next time, let's go for a ride. You can drive your van. I'll sit. But that's my crazy story. That. And then one time I did show up at the same house and I went, Oh, somebody's living under the porch. Okay.
What?
We put in an outside light, but it has an outlet on it. So they even had their music played.
They were living under the porch?
Yeah. Nobody was there at the time. So I called the electrician and had him get rid of the outlet, not the light. And the next time I came back, they were gone. So
do you know Angie Eppenbaugh?
Yes.
Okay. So she was taking pictures of an investment property walking through. It wasn't until after she was done and going through the pictures with her client that she realized that somebody was sleeping on the floor in one of the bedrooms that she went in when she was taking pictures in every room. Because they kind of buried themselves and then they were kind of looking up in the sheets hiding. And she didn't know. But my mom also walked a house recently, it was last year, and they kicked the door shut on them as she was doing the showing walkthrough.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's had more stories of people in the houses than anybody I know. People booking through them. I was like,
sometimes I'll walk into a house, and even though I know by walking the perimeter that nobody's in there, I'll still stomp my feet and I'll yell, "I'm home." I do that too. Oh,
there's nothing more nerve-wracking than walking tenant-occupied houses as a buyer's agent. And if the listing agent, especially if the listing agent isn't there, and they're like, just go, it's fine. And you know how it is when you're buying properties. And then, the things you see, I remember I was training a new agent on investment properties. We walked in and she was she was a basketball player. So she was really tall, she was older now, but give you an idea of height wise. And I remember we walked into this house. It was a little sketch, but there was a family living in there and we didn't realize the basement was totally unfinished. We didn't realize, anybody was down there and the door fell down. When we touched it, and then this guy screamed. Well, she thought it was a gunshot,
the door falling. She thought it was a gunshot.
Yeah, the way it hit.
Oh,
so
yes.
she ran up the steps so fast, she hit her head on the top, knocks herself out, falls backwards, wakes back up, books out screaming. she let's just say that she didn't stay in that field of investment real estate.
Hey, great job recruiting, Ted.
Yeah.
Jeez.
That's up to you.
I sold that property twice. I made good money on it.
Wow. Oh, that's great.
That is.
And possibly a third time. I sold to an Air Force guy. He's like, I think I'm ready to sell those houses. I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
It's funny after you've been in the business for a long time too, because you see the same house turning over. Like you mentioned, you've sold the same place twice. I've actually bought and flipped the same house twice, which that's super weird. Yeah, but it's funny because like after a while you've seen a lot of houses, so it's people will be like, oh yeah, it's 123 Main Street. And you're like, oh yeah, I bought and sold that, or I've been through that, or whatever. It's just, right?
There's a 9-unit Steelcrest apartment building.
I know that one. It's at Benson, right?
Yes,
Benson-ish.
I've been on that property 5 sides.
Have you really? It's
Really?
changed hands that many times
Wow.
during your career.
Yeah, I sold it to your business partner Chris Pomeloy. I was the agent to Jerry Schlickburn. I was double agent.
That's funny.
It sold to a Colorado group the last time I had it, and then now I think Wyatt Simon just sold it.
It's a gift that keeps on giving, man.
It is.
Well, and they're making money, right? They just want to hold them for so long and move them on.
And it's really pretty now because a lot of investors have bought it, and there's been a lot of money put into that thing.
Good.
That's funny.
That's good to see.
Well, Laura, thank you so much for coming on, but we can't let you leave without getting into our famous OT with Owen and Ted.
You're going to get OT with Owen and Ted, presented by PropStream.
PropStream is one of the most trusted real estate data software solutions. PropStream benefits all real estate professionals. You can find properties and contact homeowners on the go with PropStream's mobile app. We offer free academy courses tailored to real estate investors and agents. Take advantage of our live webinar demos to learn the software and scale your real estate business. Visit www.propstream.com and sign up for your 7-day free trial to get more leads and grow your business.
Do you like that lead in with my OT?
That was nice.
Yes.
Good transition, Ted. You're getting better. So we have
overtime.
We have some questions for you that are kind of rapid fire here. So we're ready to roll with these
I'll
bad boys.
give it a shot.
All right, it's book time. You're prepping to start signing autographs and travel the country on your book tour. What is your book going to be called? What's it about? Got either one of those things picked out?
Oh, how to survive property management. Would that be a good one?
Okay. All right.
Probably.
And so, some of the stories that I have, like some of them, they've just come back to me in sharing here today, but I probably have some more. I could even add those to the book.
Nice. Okay. I got it. All right. Ted, what do you got?
Okay, so we are on the McNally Irish podcast. You can interview anybody in the world today. Doesn't matter if it's real estate or business or personal. Who is it going to be, and what's one question you want to ask?
Can it be somebody that's deceased?
Well, give us your deceased.
Somebody. Okay, no.
Give us both. Give us both.
Okay, my deceased person would be my grandma because she had a lot of knowledge. She owned businesses, so it's just a long line of. She was a Sears, Aikens. Just a long line of us women. And I'd like to know how she bought the farm because she bought it from the Searses, the other brothers, where her husband had passed away. And she ran a bar. That's why we bought a bar, or my parents bought a bar. And, I never took time because I was young enough. I didn't realize I needed to be picking her brain.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, shout out to my grandma. It's her 88th birthday today.
Oma.
Yep. And we did interview her for about 2 hours and did create like a time capsule interview. So
that was a lot of fun. Yeah,
That's neat.
Yeah, we had some laughs, had some cries. It was pretty cool for me to be a part of that as a fly on the wall.
Wow.
So we really enjoyed it. Okay, so who's the live person you would interview?
I need to think about that.
I'm sensing politician.
Giving me some help. Actually, write a book. Tim Walz would be wonderful. He grew up in Nebraska. Mm-hmm. He's currently the governor. We all
Minnesota?
Probably name sounds familiar.
Yeah.
He grew up. Yes, he's the governor of Minnesota right now. And probably because the Nebraska tie and how he got where he is at would be, I think, pretty cool.
Coach, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Sad times. The book is wrapped. You're an international bestseller. but now we're at the end of your life, and somebody's going to be walking up to the lectern. I don't know what to call these things. They're walking up to the front of the church and about to drop your eulogy. What do you think they're going to say about you, and who is it?
Oh, hard ass.
Hard ass,
tough.
Describing you. Okay.
Has a great voice. I love to sing. I did a lot of that in high school. And yes, I will tell you this. I was Mother Abbess in The Sound of Music my senior year.
You can close this podcast with the solo if you like.
No. Love to sing. I mean, my husband would attest to that. I'm downstairs. Every once in a while I take a break and I'm just start singing downstairs. And then I'm like, okay, move on.
Nice.
Okay. So let's see. Where were we at?
Eulogy.
Eulogy. Very giving because I am. I mean, some houses, I didn't have to put the amount of money I did into it. I didn't have to purchase all the appliances, but I wanted to make sure that person, whoever was buying it, and I never want to do both sides of a transaction, whether it's my house or any others. It's my way to give back. I support Girls Inc. I do things like that. Those are the things I love.
No, who's the person that's doing this rundown of your life?
Oh, my daughter. I'll have my daughter do it.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, she and I are almost like two peas in the pod.
Okay, we'll share this part of the episode with her and tell her she needs to start prepping for 30 years from now.
Okay.
40.
You mentioned Girls Inc. You're also part of the Women's Council Realtors too,
yes.
aren't you?
Uh-huh.
What other organizations are you part of?
I'm also on our governmental affairs committee for the Omaha Area Board of Realtors. I am a member of Downtown Omaha Inc. I have been for several years.
What is that?
Downtown Omaha Inc. it started as a organization, then had a foundation as well, so that the big businesses could donate money to the foundation, which did the Christmas lights every year.
Oh, cool.
And the Festival of Lights, and then they had ice skating and different things. That has now transitioned to the Parks Foundation. But DOI is still alive and well, still regrouping after COVID, but we're getting there. And we do have coming up the Downtown Omaha cleanup. We always do that the weekend before Berkshire Hathaway weekend. And we work with Central High. Several students go out. We have teachers there. The principal's supportive. We get donations and we walk the streets, and then I'll take my pickup. And yes, I drive a pickup. Ford.
Yep, I've seen it. He's got an F-150 also.
I do.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, I'm a Ford guy.
The F-150 party. And I actually coordinated it last year. I'm coordinating it this year. So I do a lot of different things. Sometimes if you have a lot of clothes and you don't know where to donate them, there's a shop that I always forget the name of in Benson. Just reach out to me that you can donate there. But their proceeds go to help youth emergency services.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
So I take all my clothes there. Or when my girlfriend passed away, Carmen Mattis, who I named my daughter after, when she passed away, all her clothes went there. Or if they weren't sellable, or I felt 12 pairs of tennis shoes, we took them to Sienna Francis House.
Well,
those kinds of things.
I'll definitely reach out to you about that because we give all of our stuff to Goodwill.
Oh, yeah.
By the truckloads.
Yeah. Remind me, I'll get you the information.
Yeah, I will. Appreciate that. So if you can give a shout out to any mentor in your life, dead or alive, whoever had the biggest impact on you.
Ooh, okay.
I always like to say, pretend you're speaking to them directly. Who is it, and how would you like to say thank you to them?
So I'm going to cry because that's what I do. The two most important people in my life have been my mother and my grandmother. And they're the same ones that I wish I could talk to more now, because of what the adversities they had in their life and how they rose above them. And the wealth my grandma had, that maybe if I'd known more how she got there, that could have helped me we're fine financially. We're more than fine financially, right? Depending on the stock market. No. But if I would have spent time with them more, asking questions and learning from them, I think I could have been in a better place financially, security, women working together. It's very important to me.
Awesome. Yeah.
Love
that. Okay. How can our listeners support you? Do you have any, thing you're looking for in your business right now, or life in general, that somebody catching this episode might be able to connect the dots?
Well, a couple of things. One, if you're already a real estate agent and you just need somebody to talk to, we all have connections as realtors. You might have a coach if you're a newer realtor, but if you just want to talk and share and learn about investment properties, you're welcome to get in touch with me. If you are wanting to get involved in some of the organizations I mentioned, reach out to me. My cell phone number is 402-616-0103. You can text me. That's the best way to start because I can't always answer the phone.
Do you still have a flip phone?
No.
Oh, okay. They're coming back.
The look you got.
I know. Hey, I had a flip phone. I did like it at the time. It's they're annoying now.
I should tell you my flip phones, my first cell phone story. When I'm going to go buy one. I need one. And then my email address is Loretta at Omaha Homes, HOMES, now.com. That is one of my business emails, but that's a good, I'm in that one the most, except for while I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah. My first cell phone, I had to meet a contractor at a rental, and I had my son and his friend. They were in kindergarten. We went over. He didn't show. I didn't have a cell phone. Went back home, called him.
Oh,
he said,
that's so annoying.
I'm going over there right now. After I let him in to that duplex, I said, come on, boys. We're going to go buy a cell phone for mom. And I went, when there was a cell phone store right there on Dodge at 30th Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't it funny now? Because like the entire world's worth of information is literally in the palm of your hand. And like, back in the day, it was like people would ask a question that now you can just Google and you're like, who knows? It's a mystery. It could just be any type of question out there and you could instantly find it now where it's it's kids
crazy.
Are spoiled.
Well, another funny really is when my daughter went to Duchesne for high school, I just really wanted her to have a phone. Because sometimes they'd go down to the taco place.
Yeah, Cali Taco.
Or something. I just wanted.
I love that place.
So, and we weren't like, we've been just sort of comfortable, not like own millions or anything like that. Right. So I bought my daughter a basic, of course, cell phone because you couldn't text or anything then. And her girlfriend's moms got mad at me.
Because now they had to buy one to keep up with the Joneses.
And I just said, well, if your daughter's with my daughter, your daughter can use Carmen's cell phone to call you. And they were like, oh.
Good idea.
But they all got cell phones.
And you're like, only if you chip in on the monthly plan that I have.
Because they were so expensive.
Yes.
Yeah. I never thought about getting it. But you know what? That didn't bother me. So they're like, oh, you shouldn't have done that. I'm like, I made a decision. It was a good decision, and I'm moving forward with it. So
I love it. Well, Laura, thank you for being such a valued member to Omaha and your long history, your family's long history here, especially with Tom and part of being the Metro Omaha Property Owners Association. Thank you for being a valued member of our Omaha RIA also. So thank you for all that. I appreciate this and telling a story. It's been fun to hear, the start, the prices, how you've held on to everything. And then the decision, as time goes, what you do with your investments. Because I know we were just at Cafe and Cap Rates yesterday for Owen's event, networking event, and he asked us, he's like, what's your plan down the road with your investments? At what point do you sell? At what point do you stop investing? What point do you think that something else is more important, like being, full-time real estate? And I think a lot of those questions got touched on today. So I think it was really eye-opening. But with that, Owen Dashner, we see us out.
On behalf of RIA Radio, Aiden Bear and Ted Kosh, I'm Owen Dashner. You've been listening to Loretta. I am silently correcting your grammar, McNally. Signing off. Let's go. Jump in. What's the hold up here?
He was adjusting the cameras.
All right.
Didn't you see that?
Sorry, I blew up.
I can't see me anymore. Do I look okay?
You look great.
Okay. If I have one hair out of place, you guys are in trouble.
You got your St. Patrick's Day outfit.
Aiden's an AI whiz. He'll clean all of us up. What do you think? I mean, you've seen a video. There's a lot of work behind the scenes. Ted has a small bladder. He had to get up several times.
I did not need to know that, but now I'll know.
Anyways,
I'll just have a bigger smell.
This is going in the outtakes.